eyes. It's always a little better to see things in person than it is to look at the photographs, although the photographs are invaluable. So many thanks to Scott for keeping us updated on that. So let me show you guys just a few of the photographs that I took. Yeah. So let me get these lined up for you guys here. Probably the most important one to show you guys. Let me see where we're starting here. What's going on with my it's a little better to see photographs? Okay, let's see. Than it is to look at photographs. Although the photographs just a second, guys. So if I get this lined up here, okay, there it is. That's the one I want to show you guys. Keeping us updated on that. All right. So let me show you guys just a few of the photographs. This is a photograph of the new ocean entry. It was taken probably around the most somewhere around 9 o'clock this morning. 71 days. Thank you. I thought it was pretty short, past 70. I have seen the island. I'll talk about the island here shortly as well. So thanks you guys for the comments. I'll keep trying to read them. But this is the image from this morning, showing something that maybe is not as easy to see, not in a thermal image, but you actually can see the channel is present here. This is the channel right here. It goes down through here, all the way up to there, like that. That's the main channel. The kind of fan goes all the way out to here, as you guys can see. One thing I was looking for in particular this morning was if this side of it is advancing, if it's creeping over to the west towards Pohoiki, which is right there. Which is, of course, everyone's renewed concern now, because, you know, that's one of the last things we have standing now in the area, and everyone is pretty freaked out that, you know, the eruptions picking things out almost on purpose and destroying everything we care about. So that's why the concern is there. You know, obviously after so much loss, people are getting, you know, naturally, you know, very protective of that last area. So when I was looking for any kind of activity on this western edge, there's only one spot right here that was putting out any smoke from any burning, which to me indicates that this flow is not moving to the side hardly at all. And in fact, we can kind of compare to the scoop camp which remains over here, that this distance may be getting slightly shorter, but it's not really significantly changing right now, which is good for these guys, but also good for Pohoiki. So that's the status of the flow down at Ahalanui. I don't believe that Pohoiki is out of the woods yet. You know, it's still very much threatened, but I don't think it's something that's an imminent threat, at least from this particular flow. They seem to have to kind of creep over. Remember, you guys were all worried about this flow over here, creeping over and getting to the warm ponds. It never actually did that, because what happened instead was we had a new breakout upslope, which sent this massive river all the way down to the ocean. And so it may be that the biggest threat to Pohoiki is not so much this flow, but the next one that might come down along the side of this one, the potential of which still exists until this eruption is actually over. So I'm hopeful, cautiously optimistic for now, you know, knowing that something's going to change at some point. So we'll see how that goes. While I'm out of photographs, let me see what I got lined up for you guys here. Let me go back to maybe the beginning of what I was going to show you guys. So yeah, I do see you guys talking about that earthquake. I'll talk about that as well. I'll get to the summit update shortly. Probably the most important thing about that is that if we had that big earthquake, which I guess there was some debate about the size of it, but apparently it's now being confirmed as one of our 5-pointers. For the area we're talking about right now, down here on the lower east rift zone, we can look for the effects of a surge coming at perhaps 9:15, 9:30, something like that. So, but the thing I wanted to mention, that's kind of a good segue into, you know, talking about what the status of Fissure 8 today and last night. You know, we had another collapse event yesterday, which sent a surge through the system that was confirmed. The lava channel is actually, the height of the lava all the way up to the rim of the channel was less than it was previously, but then it since then has gone back down. And by the time of this photograph this morning, the channels are actually down. It's hard to tell how much in this photograph, but they actually are down, and they're you can see a little bit of a black line where the actual side of the channel is exposed over here, where it's a little bit easier to see. This picture's from over 3,000 feet, right? So that's why you maybe can't see the size. You know, something that might be 20 feet tall or 10 feet tall. It's hard to tell if it's 20 or 10 or 5 or what you have, but there's definitely like a rim there, and I'll show you guys other photographs of evidence of that. But what I'm trying to get to is that while the collapse 2 days ago did cause a big surge, which put out all these overflows, the one yesterday did not cause that to happen. I'm not sure if that's because it was a shorter interval, or if it was because the lava levels had drained so far down that the channels could actually hold most of the volume as it came through. Maybe it doesn't matter as much so long as spillovers did not happen. That's kind of the bottom line of that. And I'm not sure if on this photograph, you know, you can see that the overflows are right here close to this structure. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I do know that one house on Nohea burned down, and that 2 in Luana burned down as a result of this overflow 2 days ago. So moving on, this is a picture looking down from the fissure. Fissure 8's down on us and over here, and the channel is moving through here. It's actually moving fairly fast in the upper section. Let me go back. Moving fairly fast right through here and going through here. Maybe I can show you guys a little video shortly to kind of show you that. But the area that's down the channel from there is moving pretty well down the middle. You can see this kind of continuous line of the crust, where the crust is kind of moving, being carried along, rafting along like a snake. But the sides of the channel are crusting over more so and moving fairly slowly. You can still see some red in here. It's hard to see in a photograph, but you know, from the plane we could tell that there's lava definitely underneath all this area. It's just like a crust on top, but the fact that there is a crust shows a little bit of stagnation. The flow is going a little bit slower than it might have been. So it's interesting that this pattern actually is present through here. You can kind of see this clear line going through. So that's interesting, you know, whereas before the whole thing, you know, was molten side to side, right? So this is another indication of the level being farther down. So let's see what's next. Here's a picture of the figure 8 junction. This is now maybe the popular name for this part of the river. The Brita Channel is a figure 8. And there's an 8, another farther end of the 8 going down there. So the figure 8, I see you guys reporting about that. So I see Danny made a mention about nothing on Nohea. I talked to a person today who went and photographed the lady's house, who said that it burned down not from lava but from fire. So I'm not sure about that, but someone told me in person about that, so I'm not sure about what the map will show. We'll have to follow up on that. I'm not sure exactly, but that information that I'm relaying comes from the person who actually just talked to in the last couple hours ago. So maybe we'll follow up on that. We're not sure exactly what happened on Nohea Street, but I got 2 conflicting reports that it burned down or didn't burn down, and we'll look into that with you guys some more, guys. But okay, so back to here. You can really see a really exposed channel wall right through here. Right, so there's that level right there. And you actually, you know, while I'm on this section, there's something on the throw map I noticed I wanted to show you guys. Let me pull that up here again. It's kind of a subtle thing, but when you look closely at some of these sections of the channel, you can see that it's quite hot in here. There's actually some obstacles in the path here and here. This segment right here of the channel seems to not be as hot. So either it's gotten shallower and it's crusting over, or the flow in through there is constricted, or something's going on right in here, which is interesting and possibly dangerous as well. So we're not sure if that would cause another blockage, which might, you know, cause a backup or a change in the path of the river, or what have you, or something like that. But that's something to keep an eye on as well. This area of overflow is right in the middle of the figure 8, right in there. So just kind of an aside for that. We can go back to the photographs now. Let's see, Nana Valley is not in any more danger than it was previously. You know, I think Nana Valley has nothing extra to worry about today than it did over the last several weeks. So that's the Nana Valley info. But let me show you guys some more of the pictures. This is the area of the bend now. So Kapoho crater is right over here. You guys can notice this green roofed house appears to still be at least intact. It's hard to tell exactly. This is where it turns and heads south towards Ahalanui. And in an area right through here, there's a little spillover actually right in there, and there's several kind of hot spots. This whole area is like a big pond, right? The actual first clog occurred back up here, the first clog on the 10th, and it kind of has backed up. The first like surge of lava that came out, actually I'm sorry, the backup was all the way up here. The first surge kind of came down over here and covered what was left of this area that hadn't been covered by the previous overflow. But the actual backup has now extended from that area all the way back to where now appears a clog is somewhere in here. And you can't imagine if that area is all the way full, if there is just one extra clog over here, that's kind of with a gap in between, it's hard to tell. In this area back over here, we have a big pond, right? And lava is spilling over down to the south channel, and it may be that the levee walls have actually broken over here and caused this channel to actually allow this pond to drain. But likely that this exit point is not as deep as it used to be over here. So it may be that there's a backup of lava in this area until it can actually get over that little berm and flow down in this direction. Now there's plenty of lava still doing that, right? And the more that happens, the more it can actually carve its way down and, you know, enlarge that pathway out. But that could be why we're seeing backups over here. And this is why, to me, this area up here is still one of the most dangerous of this whole area. Because that flow that went north to Cinder Road, let me get the next photograph, which is a little farther out than there. Yeah, okay, so here's the main channel, there's our bend, there's the green roofed house, here it is flowing downhill towards Ahalanui, and right in here are the area of spillovers. So that Cinder Road spillover was this one over here, went over here, right? And this new flow that came out that kind of stopped that one from being devastating for Cinderland is the one that went over here. Now, because all this stuff is still getting clogged in here and this exit point might be somewhat shallow, you know, this thing could still get clogged again. And the next flow could spill over and actually go all the way through Cinderland next time instead of stopping over there. Or it could break open over here and spill to the south next to this one. And that's my biggest fear for all the houses in this area right in here, of which there are still several still remaining. But also Pohoiki is downslope right next to this flow. So for those of us who are really tuned in to what's happening at Pohoiki, what the potential might actually be, we need to watch this area up here just as closely as we're watching this flow over here possibly creeping over. This might be potentially a larger risk, yeah, to the boat ramp, you know, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. I'm not sure that, you know, unless this thing stays in the same place for a long time, that it'll actually can creep over far enough to get to Pohoiki. And that kind of depends also on the surges, which we'll get to a little bit as well. So let me kind of show you guys some other photographs. You know, there's that same area, the bend a little farther east, Kapahua Crater. And over here is our old lava path. And to see any glow or any signs of anything active in here at all. There is lava still going in the ocean, mostly down here, but there is a spot in the north right here. Here is our famous new island that's forming just offshore in the north part of the lava delta. There's a lighthouse, if you guys can't tell very easily, and it's getting kind of dark over here. There's a lighthouse. So the edge of the north edge of the flow is actually appears to be right in here, and you can see that the lava is actually squeezing out still. And what we believe is happening, based on USGS comments and what we kind of see, is that the lava is, well, so you guys remember that the ocean was pretty deep in an area over here, and the lava actually goes down quite a ways. And lava is not just flowing over top of this piece of land, it's actually flowing through the middle of it. And I described, I had an analogy I put out, I don't know when it was anymore, maybe it was yesterday, about this whole lava delta on land area being like a big jelly donut that's leaky, right? And the jelly is leaking out of the thing. And so just by the weight of all the rock on top and the gooey stuff in the middle, it can actually squeeze out. It could squeeze out underwater, and it can kind of pop up. You know, if this was onshore, this would basically be like a tumulus, you know, like one of these big bumps on a flow field with a little gap in between. It's like this hose you guys see. So that's basically what's going on. So if my observations are true, this thing won't be active that long. It could be active for a little while, you know, possibly up to like a week or something, you know, as like the whole rest of this gooey lava in the middle underneath this big piece of land is able to squeeze out, not just here, but along most of the coast. Not so much here, but farther south I'll show you guys. So it could be active for several days before it actually shuts off. And then it may be that, you know, once we have our winter storm season, that we have a lot of this stuff might get reorganized, it might get deposited, maybe you'll get a sand spit there, or a beach, or maybe the whole thing will get washed in the ocean. I can't really tell. But most likely it's not going to stay the way it is right now. So here's a reverse angle. Looking at that, there's a lighthouse. There's our island zone right here. And here you can see there's still a lot of active ocean entry along the Kapoho part of the delta, right? And there's no visible lava feeding into this area at all. So it's got to be the lava inside of here, right? When flows move across the land, they often will kind of form a crust on a surface against the cold air. They also form a crust against the ground, and it kind of end up being gooey in the middle areas, and that's kind of how the things usually move. How deep is the sea? I'm not really sure. The estimates from Les Peterson at Hawaii Tracker, I believe, put it at somewhere around 600 feet, maybe 620 might be the last time I remember. Some other more conservative reports might be somewhere in the area of 200 feet. I have a hard time believing it's 200, you know, I believe what Les has put out. You know, I'm not sure that anyone exactly knows. You know, I should ask Ikaika exactly how many feet it is when he's on a boat in the area right there. Or I should look over his shoulder. I didn't, but we can probably tell you guys that. There is a restriction, of course. You can only get within about 100 yards or so. So, you know, I can tell you with the ocean how deep it is right in here. It's probably similar. But let's keep moving on. There's more of that southern entry, or, you know, maybe call it the eastern entry now. That's kind of leaking out. And that is our, well, this is the one I showed you guys already. Pictures of the lava flow going towards Ahalanui, the place where it goes into the ocean. Over there it's called Kalea. Ahalanui is actually a fairly new name for that beach park when it became a county park. But I won't have to go into that detail necessarily, but the old name of this place is Kalea, so that's the name of the entry. That's been given by Ikaika, at least. I'm not sure. Not sure exactly if the USGS will take that up or not, but that's what we're calling it so far. So let me keep moving on. I'll show you guys this video. You know, I've been telling you guys that fissure, you know, so one thing that's kind of come up is the potential that the amount of lava coming out of fissure rate may have gone down. That's a hard thing to really measure, but what we can say is, number one, the height of the fountains has gone down, not consistently, but it has gone down at some points. There were some times where I heard someone was in Leilani today, they still saw lava fountaining up onto the upper edge of the cone, just visible right above the rim of the cone. So there are times when it's still founaining fairly high. They may be kind of sporadic bursts, or, you know, maybe that the level actually, you know, may have gone down, and overall the fountains have been lower that we can tell. Even if the lava levels are down, the amount of lava coming out of this thing is still massive. It's still a huge amount of lava. It can still destroy anything in its path, even if it's only going, let's say, a quarter of its regular volume. You know, so I'm not saying that it is. I don't think it is. Let's kind of show you guys the image of that. The lava channels reported yesterday and today have been down. You know, we'll look at how that changes with a surge. But let me show you guys. Let me get the video off. Show you guys how fast this thing is actually moving through there. Clearly visible, right? I'm gonna try to follow the image here. Sorry, you guys, if you get a little dizzy with this, but trying to show you guys, kind of look especially in the area right in here. You guys can see how fast this channel is moving through there. And it's just pouring through. Oh, sorry, a little out of focus there. Here we go. That's a little better. So even if the volume is down, which is still debatable, then it's still pumping out through there. Right, so this might be a lower amount of lava, possibly, but even so, it's a massive amount, and it's still extremely dangerous to everybody. So that's the point of showing you guys this. One interesting aspect is this little bay in the side that we've been calling Mini 8 for a while. doesn't seem to be bubbling quite as much. So you can see the wall of that bay is actually quite large now, which kind of leads us to kind of confirm the lava levels at the time of this video was actually down. And also it seems to be crusting over a little bit, part of it as well. Let me kind of rewind it a little bit, you guys can see that again. So the crust is kind of solid to here. This part over here is still, better pause the thing, hold on, technical issues here. There, that's better. So you guys can see how high the wall of this pond is now. You can see a pretty big shadow in there, right? So the cliff is substantial. It's hard to say from up here, but I would guess it's somewhere in the range of 20 feet maybe, something like that. And this back edge, because it's not moving as much anymore, it's kind of got a solid crust all the way to here, and this upper part over here, which used to kind of buckle with the surge of the flow coming out of Fissure 8, is still doing that a little bit, but it's not rippling as far back into the pond. That's why the crust is able to stay solid in here. And maybe when a surge comes, it may actually send a big splash and break all of that, but kind of interesting to see if you guys are looking at different videos of this, you can kind of look for this kind of thing, where is it kind of crusting over, whether it's here or in a channel farther down or what have you, right? So there you go. We also flew over Pu'o'o. I just wanted to show you guys this image of Pu'o'o that I took today. So there is no lava in there anymore. It's really deep. There's some steam coming out, but I've been calling Pu'o'o, I've been announcing Pu'o'o's demise for a while now, saying that it's actually dead, so to me it was just another thing to see, to see how it's changed over time. So Pu'o'o once again. I will show you guys, talk about the earthquake some more, I will, I promise, but I'm kind of in the middle of my photographs now, so I'm going to kind of finish going through there. Another view of Fissure 8 here from a reverse angle. You guys can see more of the spillovers. Over in here, where was it? Somewhere in here, I think, is where it was reported. No, I think it might have been over here. Might have been reported that the house in question on Nohea. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on there, but sometimes the people who come in here to the hub and tell us things are not getting the location exactly right or the name of the street, so there could have been some confusion there as well, right? So, but anyways, point out the clear visible flow with the center core right through here, and areas on the side is where it's not moving quite as much, like over here and over here, right? So there we go. I think I showed you guys that already. Let me flip through there. I'll flip the camera around so I don't have to dizzy you guys. Getting dark over here, obviously. Here, this one is another photograph that kind of shows fairly low lava levels, right? Here's an area where we actually had, the river is probably filling this whole area. It looks like the outside of this little embayment was a little shallower, so the river is now in this kind of deeper section through here and not so much going up here. Or if it is, it's kind of crusted over in that area over there, so another low channel indicator. Right, so that's still there. Same thing. Kind of really see those. Most photographs I'm showing you guys are you're able to see that depth of the channel wall all through there. And here is a view of that eastern edge close up. So here's our new Kalea Ocean Entry, in fact, right through here. And we see that the school camp is still intact. There's only one spot of burning on the east side that was right here. Fairly minor, in fact. You guys can see that there's not much active on the east side of this thing, at least when this photograph was taken earlier today. Why could it become more active again? Possibly because of the surge that might be coming. It may well be that the surge works its way all the way down the channel and causes a little bit of a surge down at the flow front as well. But it's still debatable whether that'll push the flow to the side or kind of cause spillovers from the channel, establish the channel a little more, or just kind of all pour in the ocean and make even bigger explosions. So that's my take on that. Here's another photograph I took from when we were flying offshore. There's a Kalea entry. And you can see, people have been talking about this. Let me make my screen a little brighter here, since it is so dark. Good night, you guys. All right, guys, okay. The hub crew has taken off to try to get back to normal. But here you go. Here is the Kalea. Good night, guys. The entry. And you can see all the sediment filling the water, turning it green. Yeah, a lot of this is sand. That's debris, as well as, you know, there's gas in there, kind of bubbling things up. You can see the discoloration in the water quite clearly there. Imagine, you know, look at the size of sediment in there. All right, so, and one last thing I was going to point out is here's another photograph of Fissure 8. Over here is this kind of possible collapse pit. You know, we're not sure like how recent the collapse actually is. Looking at the photograph from this side, I actually think it may be, there may have been some collapse and some sagging in there. There have been reports of some cracks around the backside of Fissure 8. There's also areas like this that are kind of sagging spots where it seems like the ground is dropping in there. Those are areas of Fissure 8 that we're concerned with. I see you guys discussing the school. Let me talk about that here shortly. Let me finish this photograph. But one possibility is that maybe related to the lower fountains inside of Fissure 8, maybe lower pressure pushing these things out. And all this ground that's cracked all the way through here, all the way through Leilani, the magma is underneath there, flowing through and also pressurizing it and kind of pushing it up, such that if the pressure were to drop, then it, or let's say when the pressure drops, you should expect that these cracks will all start moving again, and a piece of land in between them is going to start trying to drop back in the ground to kind of react to the lower pressure, the magma underneath it. So even as this eruption actually ends, there will be more cracks forming. The cracks that have formed may actually open. The ground may move some more. It doesn't mean that lava is going to come out of the cracks. It might mean that, you know, it's possible as this thing rearranges itself, it might clog off the pathway of lava to Fissure 8. It might come out of another crack that already exists farther up, out of a fissure that's erupted already. But just to tell you guys, you know, the cracks are going to keep moving for a while still, right? Even as this thing goes all the way through to end, whenever that actually happens. So, okay, let me go back to my last picture since you guys, or this picture over here. So there's some confusion. This actually is a youth camp. It's not the Kuokala School. The Kuokala School was over here. The worm ponds were over here. Secrets was over here. There is a camp that's been in discussion among some of the community that I believe has an association with Hawaii Christian Academy. Maybe you guys at the tracker can correct me if I'm wrong. But it's a youth camp in the area, so this is not the school, but this is a different school camp, that as I call it. Maybe I shouldn't, it was a little confusing what I said. So this facility is still in place, but the Kuokala School has actually been destroyed. And in fact, I shared on my page, there's a fundraiser to relocate the school. School starts in about 3 weeks, you guys. So if there's anything you can do to help the school, I would encourage you to do that. So look for that on my page if you're so inclined. The other thing you can see from here is really how close this is to the bypass of Pohuiki, Shore Road, off in that direction right over there. Okay, so I believe that might be my photographs. Let me see what else I got. Nope, those are my photographs for today. Let's turn our attention to what everyone is talking about that I haven't addressed yet, which is the summit. And as many of you guys have reported, and as is now showing on a website as well, we have a 5.3 earthquake timed at 7:08 p.m., which is why we're concerned about the impact of the surge coming probably at around 9 o'clock or so. So you guys can see, you can kind of look around. There's not much earthquakes happening anywhere in the lower East Rift Zone. Our Pahala earthquakes seem to have been revised a little bit. There's not as many of them, but then there aren't any new ones as well. There's a couple more in Mauna Loa. It's also not erupting, nothing going on there. The action is still as usual right in here. So let's get some more detail on that, if we may. All right, so there's our shotgun plot of earthquakes, as is typical for nowadays. If you guys are wondering, the golf course isn't actually up here. In most of our updates, we just call it the golf course. I should call it the golf course subdivision. It's not just a facility for golf, it's a residential area. For those of you guys who are on the mainland, maybe don't understand what I've been referring to. Golf course subdivision is right in here. Right, you can see how close it is to the caldera. Next closest would be Volcano Village, an area over here. Right, and then farther on, there's more and more habitation farther and farther away. Now, these areas are not under imminent threat, apart from the golf course. Golf course subdivision, you guys might notice there's one road that goes in there, and it goes right across this area of cracking right through here. So if you guys have seen it post about cracks in the road, they're happening in an area right in here, and also right through here. There's been cracks in the neighborhood all the way up through here, cracks as far over behind the visitor center, an area over here, cracks behind Kilauea all the way over here. So like the area of cracking is actually fairly large, something like that. Right, whereas the main collapse cracks are actually down in here. Kind of a similar pattern as we have with the caldera now. I've been calling this the main caldera, where the biggest cliffs are. The analog would be now in here, right? And I talked about the great caldera, the outermost cracks that form. Those are kind of in place still around, right? So you guys can see that. You actually can see a little bit of the edge of that old caldera right here. You see that lineation right through there. Yeah, all through there. Okay, so let's look at our tilt plot. Let me update this thing. Let's see what it might show. All right, so interesting pattern here, a couple things to talk about. You guys may remember yesterday, was it yesterday? No, the day before, I'm not sure. We had a gap in our data. We were waiting for the next earthquake. It hadn't happened yet. So we're missing some data here. So they actually just connected this point to the next point over here. It probably didn't actually have this slope here. Probably shouldn't look more like one of these. For whatever reason, the data didn't get to the website. So you can kind of ignore this little funny blip right there. It definitely going up. It's coming back down. Over here on the side, we had what was, I believe, a 4.4 that preceded our 5-pointer today. That's interesting. We haven't had quite that close of an interval between this initial drop and these bigger earthquakes following the large one right in there. We can look at the weekly pattern here, so you guys can see what I've been talking about is we've had often like a little bit of a drop with one of these bigger earthquakes before our big one, a little drop, bigger one, there's a little drop, a little bit bigger earthquake, some time passes, there's more earthquakes. This was our longest interval here. This was our 44-hour one before it came back up. Now we're back in a 30-some hour, and it looks like we're back once again in a 30-some hour. I hadn't calculated, but it looks like we're actually back in the same pattern of collapse intervals, going back after what may have been a one-off. Now to kind of qualify that a little bit, we did have a pattern, how long ago was it now, when we switched from having more or less a 24-hour pattern, so maybe it was back in here, where we had, this one might have been more of a 30-hour pattern, and it was 24, 24, 24, 24, 24, then it was 30, then it was 30, then it was 24, then it was 30, 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 and 30, then all the way over here it got to be 44, now it's 30, 30. So it may actually be changing. It may change, it might not be such a clean pattern, right? It might be like, oh, we're starting to mix in the longer period events, and maybe we'll switch over to having longer ones still. There's been a lot of discussion online that these longer intervals may well indicate the fact that the summit is collapsing slower, which means that magma is leaving the area slower, which means it's getting down here less, which might mean something about how long eruption can sustain itself, right? So my take on this has been that, I think that is a very good working hypothesis, but we need to see this pattern actually established into a longer 40-plus hour pattern before I'm really convinced about that. This one so far is just a one-off. If after this one we go to a 40, and if we go to a 30, if we go to 40 again, then I might be convinced that that's actually happening. And that's why, it might take me another few days up to a week to agree with this actually being a change in the patterns, because if the thing only happens once every day, or if it's a 4-hour pattern every 2 days, then it's going to take at least 3 2-day periods to convince me that the pattern has actually changed to there. But that said, the pattern should at some point lengthen and stop completely once the collapse at the summit stops. So that's something we're going to look for, and that's why we're so intrigued about this lengthening pattern. It may well be that this is the beginning of that change, and I'm just being more cautious to say, well, I'm not quite sure yet. I'm gonna withhold judgment until I see more of these patterns, you know. But, you know, if you guys want to look at the glass half full side, this is a change that's definitely something different is going on, you know. It could be that this taken together with the lower lava channels, taken together with the lower fountains, may mean that the amount of lava coming out has gone down a little bit. It's hard to say. The one thing that I'm not particularly not sure about is, do these surges that come in and refill the channels, how much do they make up for that lower level in between times? I think Dane Dupont at Hawaii Tracker had a really good analogy today that he posted about a super soaker gun, water gun, right? So let me see if I can recount it correctly. When you have your super soaker gun, the ones that you pump up to get pressure in that little chamber with all the water in it, when you start off, you pump it a whole bunch of times and you kind of have the thing pressurized, and you actually just pull the trigger and the stream starts coming out and it comes out pretty steady. You can pump that thing another time and the stream is still going to be steady. Pump it another time, it's still going to be steady. Once that water chamber empties enough and the stream starts kind of peter down, 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 and you give it a pump, the thing is going to go back up, and then sag, and you pump it, it's going to go back up. So the actual variations in pressure of some kind of pumping action may be related to the volume in the reservoir, the pressurized area being lower, in this case being the magma chamber. So that's the analogy, you know, which is useful. I've also thought about it as well of like a plumbing system, right? You know, so I actually live off the grid, and I've installed most of my plumbing and stuff myself, so I have some experience messing up doing that, right? So if you have a pressure tank and you have a pump that's not filling it very fast, you know, that pressure tank's really what's driving the water pressure at your faucet or your shower head or what have you. And if your pump is not on, or it's not pumping into the pressure tank fast enough, then your water pressure will go down as the pressure tank empties out, right? But for those of us that have actually run without the pressure tank, you guys can see, you know, when a pump's running, you know, the water pressure goes up more and goes up more and more and more. So the actual pump action doesn't affect the system if the pressure tank is all the way full. But if it's actually empty, then you do see that effect. It's basically the same thing. It's another way to think about it. So I think Dane's analogy is actually probably easier to understand than what I just put out. But there you are. Yes, I am a geologist, but I also believe in educating myself in as many things as possible, so that's why I messed up my own plumbing several times. So, and suffered through it, right? So there you have it. It's better to hire someone and have them do it for you, and then you don't have to deal with the downtime and no water and all that. Anyways, I digress. We're talking about a pattern of the intervals at the summit, right? So it may well be that things have changed, but it's not convincing yet. I did see that Nathan Guet, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Nathan, I'm not sure how you say your last name, but he's got a good post today kind of detailing the frequency of these earthquake events, the intervals between them, and all of that. So you guys check out his post for sure. Maybe you and I, Nathan, can do a little more research on these patterns as well. But I think in general, I agree with you that, you know, the pattern is not yet established enough to be confident in the fact that it has done all the way changed. One thing I've been saying again and again is that these changes on an eruption happen in slow motion for us, right? I mean, we get up, go to sleep, get up, go to sleep 2 or 3 times before some big change in the volcano actually establishes its way through the whole system. So it could have actually changed, and I just have to wait to convince myself because of that, right? So that's kind of stand on that. But, you know, I think altogether there is reason to kind of, you know, maybe have some guarded optimism. You know, I'm not ready to say that this is the beginning and the end officially. It might be, but I'm not convinced yet. Call me a skeptic, just because, you know, I'd rather be careful about this. The other thing which really concerns me is that the way that this eruption is likely to end will be with changes in the pressure, changes in the vents. It could well happen that lava comes out of vents that it hasn't come out of as much before. We could have another flurry of houses burn down as a result of this. More of our treasures could be destroyed. So just because this might be a change that we're anticipating doesn't mean that the actual threat to us as humans living on this thing is any less, right? So I encourage you guys, you know, to not let your guard down, you know, even if you do believe something is changing towards the better, you know, because it may be that this thing goes out with a bang, and, you know, it could be that a lot of you guys are devastated by losing infrastructure. Yeah, no, be clear, you guys, I did not say it's over. I said that something is changing, that's for sure. Something is changing. Why it's changing is what we're kind of trying to figure out exactly. Is it changing because there's less magma coming out? Is it changing because of some change in the dynamics of the system? Is it the actual shape of the... No, so there's all kinds of factors, right? So that's why I'm being so guarded with this. And my big fear really is that people get kind of... people let their guard down in some way because of this, right? So, you know, until lava's actually done coming out of the ground, it's not over. Even if, you know, it's like 1/10 amount coming out now, it could destroy, you know, the rest of Leilani potentially, right? I don't think it's going to happen like that, you know, but the threat is still going to be very real until this is all the way over. So, so for sure, yeah, that's my word of warning there, right? So, you know, I mean, I want to be optimistic as well. You know, I'm actually optimistic in general, you know, but I want to be really careful with this because I think that it may actually get more dangerous as it ends, right? So that's the key, right? It's going to may well become more dangerous and keep us on our toes more and be less predictable, less stable, right? We're seeing that already. You know, we're seeing changes that are making this less stable. Whatever the cause is, whatever the effect is, it's less stable, right? So one possibility I've been discussing and kind of keeping in my mind, you know, I don't have anyone backing me up on this, is that there is so much extra debris in the channel, whether it's the crust of all that stagnated channel on, you know, on the walls before the surge comes through, combined with stuff on the bottom, that when these surges come through, they're kind of pushing all that rubble and debris, all these pieces of crust down to the far end of the channel. And when it happens, it can cause more clogs, it can cause more overflows. We saw how quickly that huge volume of lava coming out of the channel made it down to Ahalanui, right? Was basically a day and a half or 2 days kind of thing, you know, before that thing got established and poured all the way down. So if it does that on the north side, it's going to be a situation where Cinderland could be threatened again, right? So that's, to me, still a very real threat. It's possible it'll break out on the south side and go towards Pohoiki as well. So that's big threat. It could break out anywhere where the channel is narrow enough or it makes these kind of sharp bends, right? So that's what I got to say about that. So let's see. Yeah, that's my caution basically, right? So be careful, you guys. You know, just be careful. Don't let your guard down, even if it's going to be ending. You know, actually should be more in tune with what's happening, right? Because, you know, it may go out with a flurry of activity that's unlike what's been stable for the last month or so. So Pu'o'o, I should have imaged of Pu'o'o earlier. As far as showing how it actually collapsed, there actually still a tilt meter on Pu'o'o today. Here is the Pu'o'o tilt meter. And where I can tell is it says POC. That's the station symbol for Pu'o'o crater, POC. And what you only see through here, well, I always look at the scale, 0, 1, 2 microradians. You see the big earthquakes being detected as jolts in the system. We saw last week an increase from rain actually collecting. It hasn't been as rainy recently, so I'm not sure exactly what this is, but some adjustment, whatever it is. The scale is very minor. Could be that some collapse or slumping. Same over here, you know, it's moving a little bit, but no, the scale of this thing moving is all within a little bit of this line, right? So definitely like less than half a microradian, right? So compared to the events we're seeing at the summit, look at our scale, 0, 20, 40, 60. When this thing is dropping from up here, from a level of around plus 70, from a level of minus 40, right? We're talking about 110 microradian gap difference, right? So that's easily 100 times bigger than a signal we see at Pu'u'u, right? So that's why I keep saying, you know, Pu'u'u is just basically just settling, and that's what's going on there, yeah. So we may have some more pictures coming in. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out here shortly, but that's kind of what's going on at the summit. And just to recap, you know, since the last big earthquake happened almost an hour ago now, that's when we should actually be prepared for the surge to come somewhere around 9 o'clock or so. All right, so I don't see much activity, maybe, you know, happening in there now. I'm not sure that if there's more data to show me, then let me know. But I don't see anything happening that might not be basically rock falls, right? We know we just had a 5.5 earthquake maybe an hour ago, so there's, you know, could easily be rock falls falling into that thing, but I didn't see anything as far as renewed activity in there, anything like that. So I'm gonna call that good for Pu'u'u. I'll show you guys, here's some USGS images. They posted some new USGS images to their website. So here's an image of that little island that's popped up offshore, right? They're showing it to be 20 to 30 feet across, right? Likely emerging from underwater, popping up. It's probably fairly shallow right through here to allow it to happen. There's another view of that, right? You can almost see that there's like an area of steam and some heat. There's almost like a little piece of rock connects these things under the water right there. So that could be the lava tube that's feeding this thing right through there. What else has USGS got for us today? They have a good image of the overflows over at the bend, right? So I've been talking about how this area at the bend where lava is pooling and going out through this possibly shallower overflow channel right through here down towards Ahalanui. This thing's still backing up and spilling over to the sides all through here, right? And this is an area where I believe the cinderland flow might have come from a little bit farther back, but still through here, that's the area that can come and threaten the area to the north, right? So that's something to be very wary of and watch out for as well. Let's look at this USGS photograph over here. Similar thing, you guys can see exposed banks, little embayments in the banks, which are telling me that the lava level was down once again, you know, so this was taken probably a little earlier than I took mine this morning, right? So let me see what else there is to show you guys over here on the USGS page. I don't have to go through everything. You guys, I'm sure, are tuned into that as well. Here, something worth mentioning. There are some new tiny little sinkholes forming in the flow field, right, underneath all of this tephra. This airborne rock fall, kind of light foamy rock that's falling down from the fountains, right? It's basically the frozen froth of the eruption, right? I am kind of, you know, always use a champagne bottle as an analogy, right? So when you open your champagne bottle, all that froth comes out first. If all that stuff was erupting in space, let's say, you'd have like a big frozen glob of froth. That's basically what all this tephra really is. It's covering the ground everywhere, and there are cracks under here, right? And I can't tell exactly the direction of the crack, you know, but looking at these two pits, I'm guessing there's a crack that goes under that way, like that, right through there. And as this crack widens, or the ground in between this crack, and there's possibly another crack over here, there's some more holes over here, right? That the ground in between them would actually sag down, and as it does that, it kind of can swallow some of these pieces of tephra, and it starts off on the surface looking as little holes. But what's important is how those holes connect in a line, right? So that there's probably a crack going under that way, over here and over here. And as I mentioned, these cracks will form as the magma pressure underneath the ground there is changing, right? So it began as an increase in magma at the beginning of the eruption while the cracks formed, but when this thing does eventually end, whenever that happens, we do expect to see the ground cracks moving again, right? Possibly in the opposite direction, possibly not. Not all the cracks have to move necessarily, but that's why the end of the eruption, whenever that does come, is going to have some instability to it, right? Because imagine if this whole piece of block wiggles and fissure 8's not that far away, and you know suddenly the lava can find another crack to get out of there, then that's how things can change, right? So that's why I'm advocating such caution. So okay, that's the end of the more recent updates there, update images from USGS. I can kind of go through here and see if there's anything else to show you guys as far as the USGS updates put out today. Just give me a second to kind of catch up here on that. I can show you guys a web count at fissure 8. So there it is. You guys can see that, you know, clearly if anything is dropping, it's not doing so very fast. There's still a gigantic amount of lava coming out of there, right? All through the channel. The channel is still got a lot of lava in it right there. It's hard to see, you know, any levels in here from this image. It's hard to really convince myself of anything. But that's the current live image there. Let me kind of go back over some questions here, and I'm sure I'll find something I have forgot to talk about so far. The boat, I'm not sure when I'm going to go back out in a boat necessarily. It's not the easiest schedule. That's largely why Ikaika is having a hard time joining us here. I'm not sure about that. My feeling on the crater when it begins to fill again. I assume we're talking about Hale Mau. So yeah, this is an interesting thing to talk about. We might kind of go down a tangent here, but I've said before that I think that the collapse at the summit is limited, you know, at least by the size of the caldera that exists today. If we believe, if it's true that the collapse that happened 500 years ago is actually larger than what we're seeing today, based on the size of the flow and the length of it that came out and its location, all of that. It was a summit eruption that lasted, we think, between 60 and 80 years, something like that, coming from the summit. Then this one is going to be smaller, being a flank eruption off the rift zone that likely cannot be sustained as long. You know, that's kind of tied together, but I still believe this eruption, you know, is a month's eruption rather than years. I still believe that the fact that someone's collapsing means that there's a back end to this thing. The amount of magma at the summit is limited, even if it is huge, gigantic amount. You know, I think USGS is reporting something like 500 million cubic acres, or cubic meters have actually, cubic meters have actually been removed from the summit. That's the area, the volume of the collapse so far. So these numbers are massive, right? But even still, it's got to be smaller than what happened in 1500. If that's the case, then there's a limit to how far this thing can actually collapse, and I believe that we're probably getting there. That's why we're looking for these longer patterns in between the collapse intervals. We've seen already that the horizontal GPS has stopped spreading so quickly. The vertical one has not, so it's still coming down. But there has to be an end to that, right? If the summit hadn't collapsed at all, I would say, yeah, we're in this for the long haul. Yeah, because the amount of lava coming out of fissure 8 doesn't seem to have any end in sight, right? Because if that's the case, then the summit wouldn't collapse. So the fact that summit has collapsed to me means that there's going to be an end at some point, even if it happens to be months from when it starts collapsing, such that I think that, you know, we can be on alert for these signs of the summit changing in that kind of pattern. I'm sorry, figure out where we're going to go with this. Okay, so let's talk about the 1924 collapse as well. The 1924 collapse was smaller than this one. We know that for sure now, right? So we can talk about what happened after 24. After 24, there were eruptions that happened. I believe there were 7 eruptions that happened in the next about 30 years or so. The longest eruption in that era was about 30 days. They were all of them, every single one, inside Hale Mau. Okay, so after the collapse happened, the pathway from the summit anywhere else, you know, was not in place. Yeah, you know, you could, you know, there hadn't been many rift eruptions in the period prior to that, but to me that's still the best thing to go on, right? Is that, you know, when magma comes back to pressurize a system, it's likely to go up further rather than taking a turn and going sideways towards the rift zone. If it comes up, it's going to come out Halemaumau and kind of reestablish and reinflate, refill that summit chamber, right? Possibly reform it depending on how much it's collapsed, right? Because it could well be that, you know, there's going to be exposed airspace where that part of that thing used to be. So it's got to fill in that way first. So it's likely to come into Halemaumau first, and several eruptions, you know, that might last, you know, up to a month potentially. You know, some of those eruptions were only, I want to say 4 days, you know, some of them were 10, 11, 14 days, something like that. But there were 7 eruptions, all less than a month, that kind of refilled the summit area, little by little by little. Then 1952, then we had something like a 3-month lava lake in Halemaumau. Once again, Halemaumau first, right? And that, to me, is a clear sign of enough magma has reestablished a pathway back up through the summit of the volcano. So when we see something like that, like if, you know, lava coming up and lasting for, you know, more than a couple weeks, more than a month, you know, maybe lasting 3 months, that's a sign to us there's a lot more coming through the system. So that was 52. 55 was a kupuna eruption we've been referring for a while, the one that came down, erupted in the area of Leilani through here, right? The one that lasted 3 months. After that, there was a period of quiet all the way to 59. 59 was Kilauea, that was just at the summit as well, right? So maybe about 4 years in between those eruptions to rebuild the pressure, which erupted at the summit first, Kilauea, and then a month later down in Kapoho. And after Kapoho, that's when we shift to rift eruptions, right? Rift eruptions happened in 1961, kind of 61 through 69 era was all precursors in Middle East Rift Zone, the area of Maka'apui, Alai, Aloi crater. 69 is the official birth of Mauna Ulu that lasted 5 years in a rift, right? And then after that, we had, you know, more rift eruptions all the way down, Pu'o'o era, right? And then now this is also falls in the category of rift eruption, kind of in that same pattern. All in between these collapses, right? Now that the summit's collapsed again, we've basically broken that pattern, I believe. You know, this is just my belief, right? I don't have any other anyone else backing me up on this, but you know, the data shows that after, you know, when we have this kind of pattern that we have to refill the summit first before the rift can erupt again, that seems to be a logical thing. You know, it may not be exactly, we're not sure of the connection of the pathway from under the summit conduit to the rift zone, so maybe something different will happen this time. You know, it could be that it's that whatever it is, it's actually not static, it can change potentially, you know, so we're not sure about that. But what I expect, if you guys are asking me what I expect after this phase is over, is eruptions on Halemaumau, several of them, and a period of quiet that will follow this, right? But once that happens, lava refills the summit area, which, you know, might happen pretty quick potentially, or it might not. There's no way to predict that at all. Then after that happens, then we can have an area, a period of rift eruptions again, you know, so we'll have to wait and see, obviously. One thing everyone would love me to say and to hear is that, you know, oh, the rift zone is going to stop for a long time and it's safe to move back in, and, you know, that's not what I believe at all. You know, I think that the 14-year average interval of eruptions in the lower east rift zone is something everyone needs to be aware of, right? So even if there was a gap, it could be that there's other events that happen in quick succession, like, you know, 55, 1960, 5 years apart. It could be something like that comes back. And overall, this whole area will be covered by lava at some point or another, right? It could take a couple hundred years. It could all happen in short order, like it's been happening this year. Yeah, so I think that people who live in Lower Puna need to, you know, essentially take this as like a wake-up call, that this is the kind of thing that is typical of this part of the volcano. And it's almost like playing roulette, right? You know that somewhere that ball is going to land and that flow is going to destroy something at some point. And if you're comfortable living with the risk of, you know, being in between these areas, if you're comfortable with the projections that USGS makes, you know, that people like me make, you know, maybe you're comfortable living there. Maybe that's the kind of pulse of the earth you're looking for. But if you're a person that's living in the area and had no idea this was the normal, what I think is normal for this area, then you need to reassess your risk and consider relocating for sure, because, you know, this kind of thing is something you can expect to happen. And even if it doesn't happen like this, again, the rest of your life has been changed by having seen this and living in this area. And it's something that, you know, if you're worried about and the risk is not, you know, it's not worth having a lot of stress in your life day to day, if it's causing you stress. If it's not causing you stress, fine, great, you know. A lot of people move to the volcano on purpose, like me. You know, I came here to see the earth be alive. You know, I didn't want to do that in the middle of a neighborhood, but I came here because, you know, I am interested in, you know, seeing and experiencing that for myself, you know, how the earth can change, you know, on the timeline of a human, right? Not just of a mountain that will one day become a beach because it's going to be hit by rain over millions of years, and you don't get to see that exactly, and you don't get to see, you know, valleys forming usually, or hills forming, and that's something you actually can see here, right? So that's something that's you know, the reason that I was so drawn to Hawaii. But, you know, this is happening where there are now neighborhoods, right? So that's the area, right? You know, so there's a lot of discussion, you know, in the government now about what's going to happen to Leilani in the long term, and, you know, I have no idea. I don't have any opinion. You know, there's been discussion of, like, you know, oh, people think it should be turned into a park. Some people think everything the other extreme people should be allowed to move back in there. Some people are saying they're hearing rumors of the whole area being condemned, you know, and there's all kinds of insurance issues and utility issues of all that as well. So it's basically a big mess right now. So, but, you know, the bottom line is, you know, it's a new reality, you know, right? We've perhaps been living under the illusion that, you know, a lava can park itself and stay in the same place for 35 years. And that's how that should be the normal, but that's actually unusual for how this eruption happens down here, right? So that's kind of, you know, my take on people thinking, you know, asking, oh, is it going to end? When is it going to end? When are things going to go back to normal? You know, there may never be normal again, you know, living in an area down here, because now this is going to be obvious to everyone who comes through here for a long time, right? So that's my take on that, you know. So you guys, you know, a lot of people have had for a while some serious decisions to make, some serious things to consider. I know it's been difficult because of the evacuation and the relocation and trying to find somewhere to put all your stuff and yourself and your family and your pets and all of that, you know, but that's what I would advise you guys to consider as you're planning your path forward from here, right? So you judge your comfort level, you know, what are you comfortable with, what kind of risks are you comfortable with, right? If you live by the ocean, you might be comfortable with the risk of tsunami, right? You know, you just got to be aware that kind of thing happens, right? If you live in Kansas, you're going to be aware of the threat of tornadoes, right? You know, I personally am very scared of tornadoes. I haven't, you know, experienced one very close myself, so I don't know what to expect, you know. I mean, I don't feel like I have any way to predict what a tornado is going to do, so I am totally not comfortable living in Kansas, you know. Sorry if you guys live in Kansas, you know, but you guys are probably comfortable with that, and you guys are thinking, oh, what a crazy guy living in Hawaii with a volcano. Well, I understand the volcano. I'm comfortable living here myself, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from, right? So it's a matter of what people are comfortable with, you know. So if you're comfortable with, you know, earthquakes, and you live in, you know, near an active fault line, you know, like, oh, I'm from California, I feel earthquakes all the time, no big deal, I don't mind earthquakes, you know, then fine, you know. So it's all a matter of what you're used to doing, right? So if it was me, would I move back? It probably depends on what stage of my life. At this stage of my life right now, where I have a wife and 2 little kids, I would absolutely not move back, ever. If I was, you know, as I was 15 years ago, and, you know, I was actually camping, living in a tent on my land, and, like, bushwhacking, and, you know, had only myself to care for, I might risk it, possibly, you know, because I knew I could get myself out, and I could be organized for myself easily enough. You know, when other people are involved, it changes everything. And when it's your kids involved, it changes everything even a lot more, right? So I don't know, it's not a straightforward answer, but I think it really depends. I think it really depends, like, you know, on the person's situation. In general, it's not a safe place to be inside Leilani. You know, the lava, I think, is the least of your concern. I mean, the real threat day to day is the gas, right? The gas can slowly kill you, right? You can be doing damage to your lungs a little bit every day, more so, and if you don't give yourself a rest and a chance to recover, you could develop something chronic, right? So it's one thing to go in there and, you know, be evacuating in and out, getting things in and out, but, like, moving back in is a whole other thing, and that's something especially I wouldn't make the decision for anyone else besides myself, you know, living alone potentially. So that's my answer to that. Yeah, as far as whether I move back in, you know, my answer right today would be no. But if you'd asked me 15 years ago, I might have had a different answer. So, and I know that there are plenty of people who are in there just like that, right? Who are, you know, who are just have themselves to care for, right? And they, you know, they're survivalists, and you know, everyone lives off the grid, and they're self-reliant and all of that. So, it's really a personal choice. You know, it's not anyone's right to say what someone else should do, right? You know, so that's my take on that. I know I'm dragging on here. I went on about that for a while. Thanks you guys for checking out my app, Eruption Lens, on the App Store for iOS so far. You know, I know you Android users are waiting patiently for me to get to that. Thanks for waiting. You know, I'm trying to carve out some time to finish it off. There's not a whole lot left there, but I just haven't been able to carve out the time recently because of how busy we are and how things are changing over here. So I promise I'll get to it, and I promise I'll update even the iOS one to include what's happening here now. You know, that might be like number 3 on my priority list right now. So I'm getting to it. I promise. Thank you guys for supporting me if you can. It is $5 in the iOS store. You know, I'm not trying to turn this into a sales pitch necessarily, but you know, that's a way you guys can support me if you are looking for a way to do that right now. So all right, let me kind of go back through here. I know you guys get a lot of questions, so let me see what we can get through. You know, I see you guys talking about disasters. You know, Ikaika made an interesting point a few weeks ago already now about this disaster is unlike almost any other disaster which occurs. Tornadoes last less than a day. Hurricanes might last several days. You can get back there the next week and see what's there, what's not. The ground is stable after that happens. You can actually rebuild even if you question whether you should or shouldn't. The ground is actually still there. You know, your concrete foundation is probably still there. That's not true with lava flow, right? It's been 71 days and you still can't live in your house. You still can't, you're not allowed to even go back to your property, some of these people, right? So that's what makes it so challenging, right? People can't even go back in there to see what the status is. And the thing is not over. It's a slow motion, dragged out disaster going on for getting on to 3 months now. So that's why it's been so hard for people. That's why it seems to a lot of people that FEMA is you know, while they are helping people, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and you know, some people are very frustrated with that, naturally so. I think it's fair to say that not everyone is getting as much help as they would like or they feel that they deserve based on what they've lost. And that's a challenge that we'll keep working through. Yeah, so let me kind of scroll back through here. Let's see. Let me see. Thank you guys all for joining me. I see a lot of you guys that I know in person joining me. Thank you for joining. And let me see what else you guys are making a lot of comments. Thank you so much. It's taking me a while to scroll back up through here and see what else I might have missed. I'm sure I'm missing something because a lot's going on. So let's see. All right, I think I've scrolled back as far as I can go. I can go on doing this forever, guys. Let me come back to the bottom here. Let's see here. Yeah, I see from Kim. Kim is confirming what I'm saying about having been evacuated for 72 days with not much help. Some of these people are really in a tough position, right? Where maybe their house is still standing, right? If your house is still standing, it's probably you're probably worse off than if it had been destroyed. If your house is still standing, you still have to pay your mortgage on it. You still got to pay your insurance on it. You can't live there. You got to pay rent somewhere else, right? That's tough. That's tough to be in. Okay, the hub. Okay, that's something I haven't talked about. I missed something. So one thing we've noticed here at the hub is that there's a lot less traffic through here. There is a lot less people coming through to get supplies. There are still some, for sure. People are not really getting many clothes anymore. People are not showing up to eat as many. So the hub they're not closing, but they're kind of scaling back operations, right? So they've closed up and removed the area of clothing donation. They've cut back on the meal schedule and the amounts of meals because we don't want people to be working hard, donating their time, cooking food, and then the food going to waste, right? So there's that as well. But the hub is not going anywhere anytime soon. It's going to basically downsize a little bit. You can imagine that I'm not the only one who's been here. You know, I haven't been evacuated. You know, I'm lucky to still have my house and everything in it and everything else, you know. But, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, behind the scenes you guys don't see on camera, you know, a crew of, I don't know, 40, 60 people who have been manning this place for the last 2.5 months, who have also had their lives turned upside down. So I think everyone is looking for a little bit more normal, you know, so cutting back the hours a little bit and kind of scaling back the hub is in large part to help a lot of the rest of us kind of try to get some of that normalcy back as well, you know. So we're seeing, you know, that people have maybe gone through their first temporary shelter and it wasn't the best, and the second one wasn't that great either, and maybe they've found a place that maybe it will work at least in a little longer term, even temporarily, you know, and people are getting somewhat settled, and maybe that's why they're not coming through here as much. Maybe they're kind of going back in their routine. They've found new ways to reestablish their work or that kind of thing, you know. So for whatever reason, people's lives are beginning to move on, and that is what the workers here are trying to reflect as well. You know, if people are moving on, then maybe some of these people working the hub can also move on, right? So that's where this is coming from. The hub is still open. The hub is talking about ending food service at the end of the month, right? So I'm not sure beyond that that's gonna be. There will always be a presence here. Also, if something major happens, like let's say the lava goes through another neighborhood, the hub will re-ramp up to deal with evacuees, because that's what this is really for. It's for the evacuees, right? So if there are more evacuees all of a sudden, then the hub will be here. I promise you guys that. But it seems like the need for the hub is naturally evolving, right? So obviously information is going to be something we're going to keep doing for a while. But yeah, that's basically the word. Yeah, I think there's still, you know, some uncertainty exactly how it's going to affect operations here. We're kind of trying to just kind of work through it. We're going to maybe feel our way through it to see what the demand is coming through here and see how that actually goes, you know. But yeah, that's basically what's happening with the hub, right? So yeah, exactly. We're trying to kind of, you know, recover, so to speak. As far as myself, I'll keep trying to come down as often as I can, you know. I have had many people ask me if there's a way they can donate to me directly to kind of help me keep doing this, and I will establish a way to do that soon besides the app. If you guys, you know, don't want to buy the app or want to do something different, you know, we'll make that possible for you guys as well. So, but you know, that hasn't been my first priority. I should make it my priority to do that, to set up some kind of way you guys can fund something differently. So I'll get on that, you know, because if you guys find it valuable enough, I can keep doing this potentially indefinitely, you know. We'll see how it goes. You know, it might get kind of boring at some point if things stop, but you know, if that's the case, then that's a good problem to have. So that's the deal with the hub and myself here. Someone asked me if I got sick in a boat the other day. I did not. I don't often get seasick. I do sometimes. You guys probably saw me feeling sick to my stomach at what I was about to see, or the anticipation, the anxiety of seeing that coastline destroyed, seeing the hot ponds gone, seeing the surf spot gone, seeing the school gone. If I looked sick on board, that's why. It was because of that. Yeah, I kind of was preparing myself for that. I will keep working the app, I promise, as well. We'll do that as well. And let me come back through here and see what you guys are actually talking about. Nana Valley, there's no change to Nana Valley right now. There is still the potential that the instability in the system is going to cause more blockages and overflows. That hasn't happened. You know, in particular, the area right above Nana Valley is a big wide channel, so I don't expect it to overflow right there right now. I think it's more likely to overflow farther down, closer to Kapua Crater, where it overflowed already. So that's kind of the area of concern for me. let me see. I'm gonna check on something. What you guys can add a couple more questions. I want to check on something here. I might have some more info to show you guys. Let me see what's going on here with that. We have a few more images from Scott Wilson. Unofficially, he has not yet posted these online, but I'm sure he will post a large selection of them soon. But if you guys make sure you know that these are by Scott, I'll show you guys a little bit of what's going on here in his most recent photographs. All right, so this photograph is from, oh, hold on a second, I'm not quite sure. Let me look at the time. I would guess these are sometime around 6-ish, around 6, something like that. So here is our ocean entry at Kilauea. Point of reference is the camp over here, right? So there it is. I see still a couple plumes right over here and here and here. It does look like where the lava is going to the ocean is kind of building a little bit farther this way, possibly slightly. It's hard to see from this angle exactly. You can definitely see red going there and over here, and that looks like just a tiny amount, but there's probably a system going out under the water leading to this big flat spot over here. It could be the lava's pouring in under there as well. Thanks, Dane. So these images are actually from 6/26 and 7/13. So by Scott Wilson of Aloha Skies. Here is probably a little bit easier to see image of the coastline. Here's our main entry points here and here. Look at that big boil. Whoops, the big boil is on right here where these explosions are happening from underwater coming up through. And of course, right here is the boat ramp, right, Pohoiki, which so many of us care dearly about. Right? People who have lived here, and that's been their spot where they've been raised as kids, right? So you guys can imagine the pain for a lot of people here. You know, I wasn't raised in Hawaii, so it's not quite the same to me. But certainly a lot of people who have raised there have spent a lot of time here. But impact is surely greater for those people who actually have been raised here in these exact areas. I think I've had something like 24 people come through in the last 2 days and tell me, oh yeah, I used to go to the hot ponds at least once a week, or I used to go every other day, or I was there every single weekend, or all that kind of, you know, things along those lines. So it really, that one really hurts. That one really hurts. The hot pond that used to be right over here. So I'm looking at the photograph. I can't conclusively see that the thing really is coming more to the south. I mean, it does look like it might be possibly slightly closer, but I don't really see that. You know, if it's moving to the south, it's fanning out here at the coastline itself, which is a concern. It is a risk, but as it kind of keeps creeping, it can't creep over extremely fast. It can kind of keep doing that slow creeping march, and it's still possible that it might actually come all the way across to Pohoiki, but if it does that in that direction, it won't do it that fast. Right, and then one more photograph to show you guys of this thing at night. Oh, here's probably a little more easy to see. Right, okay, this is what Scott's talking about. Entry points over here, and here's a bit of the flow moving to the west along the shoreline as well. So yeah, that's certainly something to be concerned about right in there. But kind of likewise, if you look at the top edge of here, there's a little bit of red right there along the west edge of that flow. And there's a little bit up here. But by and large, I guess there's not a whole lot you can see even in the middle over here, right? The flow is kind of coming through this channel through here. And it actually looks like it might be a little bit, possibly slightly more subdued. It's hard to tell. I mean, I don't know what comes off the side of that image over here. But that's what's going on there at the ocean entry most recently. Once again, these are Aloha Skies Aviation. Scott Wilson took these photographs earlier this evening. So, okay, back to you guys' questions. The color of the water is the sediment. When lava is hitting the water, it basically kind of shatters into like a glassy black sand, and that kind of floats in the water. I'm not sure exactly why it turns it green in particular, but it's fairly common to see these green colors in eruption. Let me show you guys a photograph I took earlier this morning of that. Where is it? It is that one. Okay, so this is from a little bit farther offshore with Scott this morning as well. So you guys can see there's a main entry, and there's a clear boundary of where the sediment has been drifting in the ocean, right? So that's what you guys are talking about as far as the discoloration of the water. So it does happen. That's typical. It's as far as I understand, you know, affected lava flow going into water, largely sediment. All right, so so let me see what else I can talk to some of these questions here. Some eruptions in the past. What I can say about that is that the highest point in the volcano is where lava's piled up the tallest, is where it comes out the most often. You know, if this was Vegas, you would bet on Halemaumau erupting every time. So that's usually what erupts and piles up. The rift zone obviously would be the second choice. And there are two rift zones in Kilauea, the east rift zone being the more active one, the southwest one also being active, and flurries from time to time as well. So I do expect eruptions to usually begin at Halemaumau before working their way down here. And especially now that we have that summit activity going on and instability up there. So as far as eruption starting to slow down, that's complicated. It might be, but it's not certain yet that that's the case. There are some signs that indicate that, and some other signs that point against that. For example, you know, things that point towards it would be lower heights of lava shooting up at the fissure, having lower lava levels in the channel. Now, it could well be that these surges have been happening the entire time, you know, the last 2 months, maybe not quite 2 months, month and a half maybe, since the pattern has been pretty clear. And if the surges have been happening this whole time and we haven't noticed them until now, why would that be? Possibly because there was so much lava coming out of there that the change, the surge wasn't noticeable. And if it's noticeable now, that would lead you to infer that the baseline level of lava coming out may have gone down. So that's something that might point towards it actually being down. The fact that we see sagging around the area might mean that there's less pressure underground, pushing the rocks above, causing the ground to sag underneath it. That's another possibility. The fact that we've had at least one longer interval at the summit between collapses. We had a 44-hour interval between two different events a couple days ago. However, the fact that we've gone back to now 2 30-hour patterns is evidence against that. It may be changing slowly enough that we can't see the pattern clearly yet. That's why I am hesitant to say that for sure things have begun to slow down. They might have, but I'm not convinced yet. And because this kind of change happens in slow motion, I won't tell you guys that for sure even tomorrow. It's going to be maybe, you know, by the end of the week I say, okay, you know, this pattern seems to be holding, or no, there's more signs that point to this not being a real pattern. All right, so fountaining at Halemaumau is very much possible. Maybe not with this eruption right now because magma is not anywhere near the surface there anymore. But when the next one does come up, whenever that is, whether it's a year or 5 or 10 years from now, it's going to likely have to come up through the water table. There may be explosions. Those explosions may clear pathways for the magma up. And there has been fountaining of lava at the summit before as well. In fact, almost everywhere around the crater, there are areas you can find this reticulite, this kind of foamy rock I mentioned before, this tephra that's falling around Leilani now. You can find it around the whole edge of the crater everywhere. Some places several feet thick, right? So there's definitely been fountains in there, right? In fact, even as, you know, even in a volcano golf course, you guys can find at least a foot thick of reticulite, this tephra layer in there. So yes, fountaining is very possible at the summit. I see Nathan saying, yeah, that there certainly is a pattern of the earthquakes. Yeah, absolutely. Check out his post for more details on that. There has been a pattern. I would characterize a pattern as he has, basically in 3 phases. There was a phase at the beginning that was more or less a 24-hour pattern. And then we're in phase 2 now, which maybe is a 30-hour pattern. We maybe have seen a hint that there possibly may be a third phase, somewhere around 40 some hours or so, but it's highly uncertain that we're anywhere near that yet. Maybe we've seen a hint that it exists, but there's nothing besides that one outlier, possibly anomaly point, that doesn't actually might not mean anything yet. If we get 2, 3 more of those, then I'll say, yeah, there's a third phase, and it's gotten longer. So that's why I'm still uncertain about that. As far as Kilauea in general goes, this volcano is active. People think about it, oh, the eruption began in 1983, and I've kind of mentioned several other years, right? Since the first Westerner came here in 1823, this place has been active almost every year, definitely every decade. So Kilauea will continue to erupt, probably not from the same place, right? So it's going to keep erupting somewhere. It's not, maybe not going to be in Puna again. Maybe the Southwest Rift will go. Maybe it'll be at the summit again. And keep in mind that Kilauea is made up of 5 volcanoes, right? Of which there are several active. The one that most of us would be concerned about being Mauna Loa. Mauna Loa, when it erupts, is massive, right? It could well be that despite all the destruction we've seen here, this may only be like a blip of what Mauna Loa can do. We may be doing all this again in a couple years with Mauna Loa instead as well. So the island is volcanic. It erupts essentially all the time. If it's not erupting, that's kind of unusual, right? That's kind of my take on it. If it's not erupting, then you have time to do something different, right? But overall, it's probably erupting almost all the time somewhere. All right, so let me kind of come back here once again. Is there a chance for a really big earthquake? Usually, so my short answer is not right now. Certainly we'll have big earthquakes again. We've had them in the past. They're happening again. When I built my house, I built it prepared for magnitude 8 earthquake, because that to me is what's reasonable. If you get above 8, then really there's going to be such widespread damage that maybe it's not reasonable to plan beyond that, but I expect to see magnitude 8 earthquake or 7 point something at least once in my life, and the 6 to 9 was pretty close, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's another 7 in my life as well. The biggest ones on record in Hawaii are actually from Mauna Loa on the south flank. There was an 8.0 and a 7.9 in 1868, maybe several weeks apart. People talked about how there was so much shaking for 2 weeks that people couldn't even walk around. Even the cows having trouble walking around. It was a fairly rural area, a lot of ranch land out there. So that's the kind of extreme, and some people might be like, oh, what's happening in Volcano right now, Volcano Village, Volcano Golf Course is pretty extreme, and I would totally agree. I don't know that, many of us could actually be prepared to sleep with that many earthquakes shaking the ground all the time, right? Imagine if, not everyone here has kids, but, when I had newborn, I was waking up every, at most, every couple hours or whatever else, then it's hard to keep your mind functioning properly day after day after day without getting good sleep, right? Sleep is one of the most important things we need, so if we don't have a chance to ever recover, it's hard to deal with anything that happens, any change that you don't expect, it's hard to deal with. So you can imagine if these big earthquakes have been happening since, I want to say, the cycle, it's been since at least in May, maybe towards the end of May, that, it's getting really hard to live up there right now. So that is pretty extreme as well. So yeah, by the way, if anyone has been dying to feel an earthquake and never want to feel one, and this is your chance. Come rent one of these deserted bed and breakfasts in Volcano. Would love your business, and come feel an earthquake, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many it is, however long you stay. I was up in a village several days ago for 5 minutes sitting still in a truck, and I felt 3 earthquakes in 5 minutes. So there you go. If you guys are dying to feel an earthquake, maybe you can do that. Yeah. A couple more things. The fissures uprift. The fissures uprift may well erupt again. Probably not all of them, but some definitely have that potential. So that's why I think even as eruption, I'm not ready to see eruption is winding down yet. But when it does wind down, whenever that happens to be, it is very likely that something will change in a sense where another fissure may put out some lava flows. That has happened in previous eruptions before. Those little flows may be very destructive if they happen out of these fissures in Leilani, right? So even as this thing, whenever it does begin to slow down, the danger will actually increase before it decreases, and it may well destroy many more houses before this is over. I really hope not, but you know, I want to make sure that everyone is prepared for that flurry at the end that may come, right? I hope that we're wrong. You know, it could be that the thing kind of winds down at 8. We may have weeks of quiet potentially before the thing pressurizes and re-erupts somewhere else, kind of to die off a slow death of the eruption. That's possible as well. It could drag out as well, you know, so we all hope the thing shuts off as soon as possible, but you know, once it shuts off, there may still be more to come. I've mentioned before, the gases coming out of the ground may last for months after the lava stops coming out as well. So even if you guys, you know, have houses near the vent and lava stop coming out, it may not actually be habitable for a while beyond that. So those are some considerations of, you know, how the flow will actually form. The lava island that formed today, formed yesterday actually, probably formed from a fairly shallow underwater lava tube that's kind of popping up right there just offshore. There it is. What else is on here? You guys want me to be civil defense director? That'd be interesting. You know, I would certainly approach, well, you guys clearly are obvious. I'd certainly approach information dispersal a lot differently than is happening now, but they have their reasons for sure. So it may be that you have to have 2 different people. You know, it may be that the government can't tell you things like this, that they don't want to scare you guys, they don't want to cause any kind of panic, that what they say may come back to haunt them, you know, in legal ways. You know, as much as I'm confident in what I'm saying, you know, I am just a citizen geologist, right? I have the right to free speech. I don't represent any government or any agency. If I did, I probably couldn't say as many things as I'm saying now, right? So I'm in a pretty unique situation as far as that goes. You know, that's why I'm also in an unorthodox position for that. So, you know, I'm not sure that that's the position for me, you know, but certainly I think there are improvements can be made for the process, and, you know, maybe we'll talk about that when this is all over. What else came up? Something else came up I wanted to talk about that came out on one of your comments here. Let's see. I'm kind of just making sure to address you guys here, just because, you know, I know it's been a while since I did the last update, and I don't, you know, like to address what you guys are talking about. You guys asked me a little bit about where I'm from. I won't go into terrible detail, but you know, if you guys are interested in knowing a little bit, I was born in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. My family moved a lot. From the age of 11 on, my family moved to Europe and then to North Carolina. So I have lived in Rio. I've lived in London, England. I've lived in North Carolina. I lived in Hawaii. Then I lived in Michigan for my graduate school. Did my undergraduate in North Carolina. My graduate work was done in Michigan. Then I moved back to Hawaii. For you guys that are joining us late, I can show you guys one key photograph of the Pohuiki area earlier today. Let me show it to you guys. Here is the entry earlier today. This big flow that's going to the ocean is not spreading towards Pohuiki on this upper section right here. There is some spreading happening right along the coastline right through there, which is of some concern. This flow is mostly pouring in the ocean, and not so much moving towards Pohuiki, which is over here, right? The threat to Pohuiki is still very real. It could be that this thing is active long enough, it could creep on over, or it could easily happen that the flow, like this flow right here that came in place, just point out to you guys, it goes from there to there. That's the size of this flow. So if another one of flows at these sides comes from uphill next to this, then Pohuiki is in trouble, right? To me, that's a bigger threat than this thing creeping over little by little by little by little. This is also still a threat, but it's a longer term threat than another one kind of breaking and coming down the side. So, yes, U of M and UNC. See, I have some fellow alumni on me here in the chat. Thank you. Nice to see you, Andrea. John is in Alaska. Yes, he's actually leading a excursion of volcanoes of Alaska and back in Hawaii as well. He'll be back shortly. He's going to be contributing by adding comments to this feed later on. That's how you can contribute, kind of not while we're doing this live. Tonight it is just me over here. You guys just joining late. Ikaika had wanted to join us tonight, but he is actually on Oahu meeting the governor, discussing temporary housing solutions. So, yeah, what a job that guy's doing, yeah. Lava Tree Park is still there. This flow in Lower Puna is the biggest one in a long time. It's already larger than both 55 and 60 flows combined. The worm ponds are gone. Kokala is gone. The worm ponds used to be right here. The school was right here. The surf spot was right there. So those areas are all gone. Many people here at the hub are in mourning still. You know, I described how when I went out there to see it myself, just to believe it with my own eyes, it felt like a funeral, right? We were celebrating the existence of the place and the life that it brought to all of us. But we're also witnessing its passing beyond the physical realm. The place will still exist in everyone's mind for a while, obviously. But it's no longer physically there, right? So that's kind of how I felt. I still feel about that a little bit. Lava events in Puna. Let's see. This is possibly not the largest lava event in Puna. It's hard to describe, but let me go back in time a little bit, since I am making this a long update anyways, and show you guys at least one map from farther back eruptions. So bear with me here. Let me find the right image here on my iPad. It is coming, just a minute. It's farther back than that. I know it's in here somewhere. Thanks for bearing with me, but I want to answer this question properly. And as you guys have learned, the graphics are one of the easiest ways to show you guys what's really going on down here. So here it is. Here it is. All right. So okay, this is a map taken from a paper that I don't have written right here on the actual image, but I can share it with you guys later. This one details the 1955 and 1840 flows. Okay, so that's what was colored. Everything that's white is something else. Okay, so that's what matters, is 1840 and 1955. We've talked about 55 already. 55 being an 87, 88 eruption. That's this striped area here to the south. So you guys have probably seen this part of this map before and some different version of it. 55 put out lava. As you can see, the fissure went, let me get my pointer back. The fissure went kind of through there. The cracks, you know, there's a lot more cracks in between these areas you're not seeing. You see there's a crack, actually there's a side step. Another crack over here, kind of in two segments, you know, with a gap in between. So not exactly the same. And you can see these put out flows just to the south. And when this eruption was beginning, we thought, okay, maybe this one's kind of similar to that. And then we have 1840, which broke out on the other side, the north side of the rift zone, right? Erupted through the middle of what is now Nanavale Estates, you know, so you guys in Nanavale, I don't think this eruption right now of Leilani may not be the one that gets you, but you need to be aware that Lava Tree State Park is a place where the ground cracked open in 1790, put out a big flow. Right next to the road where you guys come in is another fissure that broke open in 1840 and put out this massive, massive flow to the ocean, all the way to the ocean by sandhills, right? Now, this one here is our map of 1790. Okay, so in 1790 we actually had two distinct fissure areas, right, on both sides of the rift happening together, flows all the way to the south and to the north at the same time. Okay, so that event I'm not sure about the volume of that compared to now, but you can see that that's kind of the other end of the spectrum of the extreme. You know, we actually could have two of these things, two fissures, putting out lava in both directions right now. So that kind of, you know, is just a little example of how extreme it could be. And I'll leave it at that as far as those particular maps. But yes, you know, I would probably put the volume of lava in this eruption probably in the same ballpark as 1790. It's starting to rain all of a sudden here in Pahoa. Sounds like it might get heavy. Yeah, so you guys hear that noise? That's no generator today, but maybe the weather. Maybe that we're finally getting some weather from this area. All right, so let me kind of scroll back through here. I see you got some family members in here as well. So good to see you, Dad, and Lisa. Checking out what I'm doing over here. And let me see. Where is Mileka? That is a good question. Mileka has been reporting from other locations. I haven't talked to her directly, so I can't say exactly what she's been doing. I can probably speculate that her boss probably got tired of keeping her in Puna for so long in a row, and you know, maybe something had to change. But let's ask her. Yeah, you guys can ask her to join us one of these days. Ask her to come back over here. So we'll see about Mileka. You guys can message her and tell her to come back. I'm not sure if that'll work or not, but feel free. So yeah, that's the rain. In Kapoho, not a whole lot has changed in the last few days. Lava is still oozing along the shoreline, producing that little island that emerged yesterday, 30-foot wide island. But the edges of the flow field haven't expanded very much from there. So I'm not sure where in Kapoho our viewer is referring to, but we can probably refer to the maps again as far as that goes. So I'm sorry I can't be more specific about that. And let's see if there's something else I can address. Let me see. Just a minute here. Trying to address everyone's question if possible. Let me look up what we got going on here as far as some of these locations. Well, let me show you guys the thermal image once again. If you guys, this is one of the first things I showed earlier today. I can show you guys the thermal image once again, and maybe that'll clear up where in Kapoho you're talking about. But here we go. Here's our thermal map of the Kapoho area. So until last week, the lava channel was coming in through here, moving south. Kind of first went to the ocean through the bay, right in here. Moved south, destroyed all vacation land. Moved north, destroyed the beach lots. There's not a whole lot left up here. There might be a few structures still remaining. It's hard, I can't tell for sure if they've sustained damage or not. But most everything in Kapoho is gone, with a few handful of exceptions right along the edge up in here. To the south, you can see and add possibly half mile, maybe a little less to that. The newest flow that came down. The diversion up here caused the breakout to flow south, destroy our treasured worm ponds over here. This is the area that's pooling and overflowing. You guys can see there's a big area of lava pooling up here. I believe that because this was an overflow of this pond, that the exit point of this pond, even though it may have knocked down some of the levees of the channel in here, may still be somewhat shallow, maybe not as deep as the path that led out of it this way. So that could be of concern, because lava can actually pool in here and spill over even as it is draining at the same time. And if something were to block this pathway, if the opening is not as big for lava to get out, if it, if it were to, it would be blocked. If it's shallower, maybe it can't actually get clogged as easily with the debris, but it's hard to say what's happening in there. Then the flow could spill out to the south this way, and that would be the one that could threaten Pohuiki going this way, or it could spill out to the north over here to threaten the Cinderland. So I'm still very concerned about areas downhill from here and downhill from here, because if lava comes out as fast as it did in this area, it may well move through here in a day all the way to the ocean, and a day all the way to the ocean that way. All right. Let's look at our thermal image of the coast. So you guys can see the lava is not filling the channel. Lava is not feeding into here. Whoops, not feeding into here anymore. But this whole pad is full of lava on the inside, like a goo in the inside of a jelly, like the jelly in the middle of a jelly donut, right? There's like liquid in the center, and it's got a leak, so the thing can kind of ooze out and kind of keep oozing out the sides, right there. And likely it's oozing out underwater as well. I believe that new island is that spot right there. I think that's it right there. You can see even in a thermal image there's actually a connection to the other heat zone. So likely there's a little lava tube that goes just under the surface of the water and is popping up right in there. So it is an island with water all around it right there, but there is a connection to it under the water from this whole gooey lava field. All right. Here's our new flow. We talked about the spillovers over here. Let's talk about other parts of the channel. You can see the last time we had spillovers, the huge area that was covered by overflow, mostly already covered in lava in this area right here. But you guys, point out like that's the size of a house, right? So like the area of lava coming out in a short time is massive next to the channel. There are parts of this channel, in particular right in here, where the image appears a little darker. I'm not sure if that's because crust is forming, because lava's not moving as fast, because it's shallower, and that's why it's not moving as fast, because it's actually blocked somewhere and not as much flow is going through there. But there appears to be some debris, whether they're plates or crust or blocks, it's hard to tell from this image. But there's definitely stuff in here that can be blocking this, whether it's here and it can be block it anywhere else. If lava has got to all fit in the smaller area, it's going to spill over again. The surges that are happening, to kind of repeat myself a little bit for you guys who maybe missed the beginning, the surges that are happening may be clearing out a lot of the crust that's forming and kind of flushing it down to the lower parts of the channel where they might be getting clogged, or all the way down causing the spillovers. So the fact that lava levels are going up and down and pulsing is an important change, and making everything less stable, possibly increasing the risk of spillovers, blockages, diversions of the channel. So that's why that's an era now. We've come into a phase where we're less stable and have to be more careful. Here this is a signal of the surges that spilled over a couple days ago with a big pulse that came through. So that's what can happen, and that's our thermal image. As far as what to expect in Volcano, you guys notice the rain is starting again. There are going to be earthquakes in Volcano for a while. Yeah, so that's probably what you're most interested in here. It's going to go on for a while. We would expect that the earthquake pattern should slow down with the big ones. The little ones might take a lot longer to slow down. Maybe they'll come less frequently, but you probably will still be getting them, yeah, for a while. So I don't believe there is any imminent threat of explosion up there, like right now. There could develop that chance, but if that does happen, we will see warning signals at the summit, which we'll talk about. So that kind of thing does not appear imminent to me right now. I'm not sure what else I can say about the volcano area right now. Apart from that, PGV, I had some people ask me today about PGV, the PGV that got covered today. No, nothing's changed at PGV directly for a while. None of the spillovers that we've seen have come near there yet. So what was covered a week ago is still covered. What wasn't, there's been no change. Okay. One thing that maybe is prompting that is the fact that something I haven't mentioned, I knew there was something else forgetting to say. People have been hearing a lot of booming sounds in Leilani. There was some speculation that this might have been from the ocean entry, explosions to the ocean entry. But when I was there on the boat, I did not hear anything along those lines. So I don't think that's where the explosions are coming from. I don't know where they're coming from. It's interesting to me that we've seen a lot less activity in fissure 22 in the last week or so. Fissure 22 is the one that, up until about a week ago, was not booming, but it was actually shooting lava in the air with gas bursts, what we'd call a Strombolian pattern of eruption. So one possibility, I'm just throwing a possibility out there, you know, I don't know, I have no confidence this is actually what's happening, but it's possible, is that, you know, if the gas is not coming out of 22 anymore, maybe it's coming out of 8 or somewhere else, and maybe it's coming out somewhere it's causing a boom. Maybe it's coming out of 22 still and causing the booms just from there. These explosions are being reported, I believe, for longer than the surges are lasting. Someone talked about them going on for like 6 hours, something like that, maybe yesterday. So the people who are closest to them believe they're coming from fissure 8, but I have no way to confirm that. We do know that you know, the booms are happening. We've had at least a dozen people reporting them to us, so it's definitely happening. But I can't tell you why exactly. Yeah, we don't know exactly, but that is going on. So yeah, I knew I was forgetting something. I'm glad I finally got to that. I also mentioned that is occurring. I'm not trying to ignore you guys who have come to that. So let's see, someone asked about the possibility of the island being a collapse. That was my first thought, actually, is it might have been a collapse. But the fact that lava is actually coming out of it makes it more likely that if there's a lava tube feeding it and it kind of emerged from under the water. So collapses will happen. You know, the shape of the island is not going to be set for a while. I think it's going to take at least one winter storm season to move all the sand around, to pound on that shore, to remove the areas that are not stable. There's going to be collapses happening there before the shore stabilizes to its real long-term shape. The sand's going to move around a lot, and I'm not sure where it's going to collect, but it might move over a couple of seasons, in fact, but it's going to move and collect somewhere. There's a lot of sand out there right now. The last time I went on a boat, an area of Kapoho. I'll show you guys on a map right here. Cruising offshore along a boat, this whole area, like especially this northern side through here where the lava is kind of stop going, you can see better, there's not as much haze. Like I could count small beaches, but something like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, like maybe 5 or 6 different places where the sand is already gathering, making little beaches in there right now. So there will be some beaches forming there at some point later on. Who knows how big and where exactly they'll be, but that will happen. That will happen at some point as well. Just to repeat, PGV has had no impact, nothing covered as far as I know. And there are no explosions coming from there that we know of. Right? So I think a lot of people really want that to be the case, but I'm sorry to say that's not what we believe is actually happening. All right, so several of us are talking about how it's time for the surge. Believe it or not, I've been at this for the whole period of the surge. It's time I should wrap this up soon, so let's check that out and maybe sign off here. But let's look at the webcam at fissure 8 first. And turn this around for you guys here. So here is our webcam image from 8:59. And I see what someone is talking about here, that there is, I should show you guys at some point. Not sure that'll happen tonight, but we'll look into that as well. So that is something to be watchful of for sure. Not a whole lot of lava over there, but there's definitely some glow, right? So something is happening over there. Let's see. The island, yes, lava could fill in the island and attach it to the rest of the island, and it could also collapse afterwards, so it's definitely transient for now. Halemama will fill up again at some point, for sure. I can't tell you when, but I can guarantee it's going to happen with no timeline attached. The other fissures, as far as we know, are not showing any renewed activity as far as any heat or gas emissions coming out of them. I know there have been some changes in the amount of steam coming out, but that could be because of the rain variation here. It's hard to say exactly, at least conclusively. So that's something definitely keep an eye on. These flows over here don't look to be very big and not moving very fast, so I'm not sure what's going on there exactly, but we'll have to look into that. And it may point to some instability in the ground, or possibly in a cone, or I'm not sure exactly what's happening in there. But you know, it doesn't look huge compared to that, obviously. And obviously that's carrying most of the lava still away, so I think that's still the big concern is, to me, the fact that the surge may push a lot of this debris down the channel and possibly cause a spillover as well. So that's the key thing there. So thanks, you guys. I've tried to answer as many of your questions as possible. It's getting late. I'm gonna head back home. But yeah, the hub is still open. It is kind of, let's say, you know, pulling in some of the various services offering, you know, kind of cutting back a little bit. But the hub is still open. They are still serving. There is still food here. There is still materials for whoever needs it. But because the traffic through here has not remained as high as it was, they're starting to adjust to that as well. So thanks, you guys. Thanks for everyone who's contributed. Dane and Ryan and Nathan and everyone else who's given information as we kind of go along here. Arthur. I saw John pop in here briefly. I'm not sure if he's still around. Hi to you guys. I think I saw Mick as well. Thanks for joining us earlier. And we'll get back to you guys tomorrow for sure. Hopefully we can get Ikaika back at the same table and talk story, because he has a lot of, you know, it's always better to bounce off someone else and get their impressions, their ideas. You know, no one person can think of everything, obviously, so it helps to have him around. And it's been great when John's been around to bounce things off of, and when people are around coming by the hub to talk story. That's been great also. So yeah, thank you guys. I'm not sure when we'll do an update tomorrow, but you know, one thing I can be sure of is that the guys at Hawaii Tracker on Facebook group are putting out updates as soon as they possibly can verify something. So if you guys want updates more quickly, check those guys. You know, I'm contributing information to those guys as well, but the video updates maybe we'll do more frequently if there's something major happening, as it was the case a couple days ago. But otherwise, I'm trying to kind of gather information and be at the hub and talk to people who are here walking into the hub, who are, you know, maybe don't have smartphones or internet or radio, whatever else. So letting those guys know what's happening as well. So I'm kind of working on several different fronts here, and that's why the video updates maybe are not as frequent as when something is really changing really quickly. So all right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks for supporting me. You guys who have gone and bought my app on the iOS store, my Eruption Lens app. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can't thank you guys enough. those of you guys want to contribute in other ways, I'll find a way to set that up in the next few days. For now, thanks for just your verbal support and sharing, you know, the feedback you got with everyone. Feel free to keep posting questions. John may actually have a chance to come on and answer those later on, you know, when it's overnight for us over here. Yes, I should, you know, put out a special thank to my wife, Heather, and my kids, who've been very, very tolerant with my crazy, crazy schedule. Understanding how important this is for everyone, to understand what's going on. You know, I've been saying knowledge is power, right? You guys hopefully can take this information and, you know, make decisions with it. That's really the key part of it. That's why I'm doing this. Yeah, it's pouring rain here. I will work on an Android version. I probably need Ikaika to come back and do more updates before that happens, because, you know, if I'm doing all the updates, I don't have as much time to do anything like that. But it is high on my list, I promise you guys, to get the Android app done. Oh, here's John once again. Hi, John. John will follow up. We're wrapping things up here. And thank you guys. Thanks once again. I'm not sure how else you guys can support now. People have mentioned wanting to set up some kind of funding page for me, so I'm going to look into that and see what we can actually do. But yeah, it's very important that, you know, everyone realizes, you know, the sacrifice that my family is also making. You know, I really appreciate it. Everyone, you know, at some days, you know, their patience may wear thin, and I of course understand. So yeah, they deserve the hugest thanks from me and from you guys as well. So I keep promising them, just like I promise you guys as well, this is not going to last forever. It will be over at some point, I promise. I still think that it's months eruption rather than years, right? So from the very first day, you know, my first guess was, well, it's going to be more or less 3 months. We're not quite there yet, right? So there's no reason yet to think that's anything but a few months, in my opinion. So I'm sticking to it. I hope it's going to be over pretty soon. People are trying to get me to pick an exact date. I don't know about that. I got to think about it a little more. I might have to put up a dartboard and throw a dart, because I'm not sure if I have any confidence, you know, any date I might pick. But I do think it will end sooner than later. I'm not sure to say exactly when, but I think I would say that my feeling is that we're definitely past the halfway point, right? The fact that things are progressing in a way, and the changes that we're seeing are progressing in a way that, you know, that's probably the most comfortable thing I'd be willing to say. We're past the halfway point. You know, we may be getting closer to the end, but I don't know. You know, maybe in a few days I can convince myself and you guys of that too. But even if we are coming to the end, remember, you guys, stay extra vigilant. You know, this thing is going to end with a bang, just like it started with a bang. There is quite likely more destruction to come, so we need to be prepared for that. Anyone still near these areas, you know, should still have their plans in place, have their things packed up, you know, have their priorities all spelled out, because you guys have seen this story play out several times already, where an evacuation notice does not come with a whole lot of warning. Maybe 15 minutes, not enough time to put a plan together, not enough time to pack, not enough time to really think straight, right? Just enough time to, like, put the last couple of things in the car and get out of there, right? So that's why it's extra important, you know, just like in an area that, you know, coming to hurricane season, right? You want to have your hurricane bin ready, right? That kind of thing, right? Everyone who lives in hurricane country knows you gotta keep your emergency supplies on hand. You know, when your power's out, it's out. You better have your candles ready, right? There's no time to go to a store and buy your candles. You gotta have your bin ready, right? Kind of thing. So same thing goes now for this eruption. Have all your stuff ready to go in case you gotta evacuate in short notice. Most likely areas still inhabited today, and it's still the area of Cinderland, you know, especially you guys, especially that, you know, one warning that we gave out a few days ago, the flow that stalled, that could happen again. You know, I hope it doesn't, but that's a most likely place. Yeah, your priority, your animals, for sure. Make sure everyone knows about the, you know, there are still people going into Leilani today rescuing animals that were left behind, still today, 2 months later, right? So let's avoid that if possible. Yeah. So, all right, you guys. Say a couple of things here on behalf of Ikaika. We'll say stay classy. I'd like to tell you guys once again, knowledge is power. So, you know, that's the point of doing all this, is you guys can prepare, right?